Tonight, part 2 in Peace, Not in Pieces. Our guest co-host Andrea Clark will be discussing self-esteem issues caused by physical, mental, and sexual abuse from a woman's perspective. And as she shares her personal testimony of her encounter with being in an abusive relationship, we'll also dive deeper into how these types of abuses can also generate a lot of other forms of abuse. Our goal tonight is to enlighten those who may be currently in one or more these situations and inform you on how to release yourself from this behavior and regain your peace and boost your self-esteem. We also want to inform those who may be friends with someone who is going through this type of behavior on how to help and encourage that person to come out of this situation in peace, not in pieces. You're listening to The Next 15, a podcast show for the binge listener covering random topics such as relationships, current news, and everyday life issues. My name is Trey North, and for the next few minutes, I hope to make you laugh, educate, and inspire you. Welcome to The Next 15 podcast show. It's Friday, 7 o'clock, and you know what time it is. It's time for another episode of the Next 15 podcast show with my co-host, Chris McAllister, Ty Hosey, and we got a special guest co-host, Andrea Clark. Chris, what's going on, baby?
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's always good to be back in the saddle once again.
And let's not forget T. Hosey, all the way from Dallas, Texas. What up, Ty?
What's up, everybody? You've worked all day. Now it's time to play.
I love that one. Andrea Clark is in the studio. Hey, Andrea, how you doing tonight?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing good tonight.
Well, listen, y'all. Thank you guys for coming in and listening in. We want to give a shout out to all of those who are listening tonight. It is a very special episode. It is a 3-part series that we're doing last week. It's called Who Am I? I'm sorry. And it's a 3-part series. The first episode was I Am Not Your Opinion. Executive produced by Ty Hosey.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we had a great time on that. We discussed self-esteem issues and how others view you as a person. We discussed the dangers of comparing and wanting to be like other people and how that can influence you to be someone that you were not designed to be. And we also covered getting over your opinion of your own self and a whole bunch more.
Right.
Yeah. So tonight you heard the intro. Andrea will be discussing self-esteem issues caused by physical, mental, and sexual abuse from a woman's perspective as she shares her own personal testimony. Also, before we do that, what up, Rod? We see you. What up, Jacqueline and Shamika? Thank you so much for listening. I want to give a shout out to all of our listeners in the countries of United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, Spain, Italy, Philippines. I hope I'm not missing anybody. Paris, Houston, Tyler, Dallas, and surrounding Texas, Austin, Texas. Can't leave without saying Austin, Texas, y'all.
Baby.
I'm tripping.
The ATX, baby. What's going on?
The city that's weird.
Let's keep it weird.
Yep, let's keep it weird. Yeah, so it's an interesting topic tonight. Also, don't forget to invite somebody right now. Tell them to go to either www.next15podcast.com or tell them how to get where you are right now. If you're in the chat room, go to Spreaker.com and search the Next 15 podcast, and there you will find us live and other past episodes. You can subscribe. You can follow us also on Instagram and Facebook at Next 15 Podcast. Well, look, guys, I think it's time to get into tonight's topic. In peace, not in pieces. Yes. So tonight we're going to start with Andrea Clark, and we're going to give it to you, Andrea, to start it off.
All right. So my physical abuse started in a relationship that I was in for 6 years. In the beginning, everything was peaches and cream. Everything was good. But then the last 3 years was when it took a turn for the worse. I walked around with black eyes going to work. I was isolated from my family. I hid the marks. Well, I hid the marks with makeup.
That's all right.
Yeah,
Go
it's
ahead.
okay.
Take your time.
It was just hard to be around anybody at that time because he kept me away. I couldn't talk to my family. I didn't have anybody to. Well, the person I did talk to, their response was, if I was you, I would get out of. If I was you, I wouldn't accept that. But it's easier to say than to be in the situation. You have to actually be in a situation like that and not to have a plan in place to be able to get out of it.
Right.
So what I did was I continued to go to work, but this one particular day, well, the night before, he jumped on me. He said that I called another man's name in my sleep. So I woke up with a 6'3", 220-pound man on top of me.
Wow.
My hands was pinned down by his legs.
Wow.
He had a gun to my head. And he told me it was only one bullet in the chamber. So he spent it around and he let it go. Wasn't nothing in the chamber. So he said, I'm gonna kill you. And he did it again. Wasn't nothing there. So I got up for work, had a black eye, put makeup on. I was a cashier at CVS. So it was just like a regular work day for me. And customers started looking at me weird. I was like, why are they looking at me? But it had turned purple. So my manager told me to go home. I said, I can't go home. So he called my mom. I didn't call my mom. He called my mom. So my mom came up there. She called the police. And that was how I was able to get out of that situation.
Wow.
At the time, and my daughter was only 2 years old. So she didn't see as much. But just to be in physical, emotional abuse, I lost weight. I had fear. I lost confidence in myself. People would give you compliments. Oh, you're a pretty chocolate girl. I never believed anything what anybody would say. And it carried on from relationship to relationship. So, and how I got out of it was the best thing that I could have done. It was either him killing me or me living for my child.
Yeah. Man, that's tough because nobody. You said something. You said you didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
Nobody goes into a relationship with a plan on how to escape from the relationship.
From a relationship in that manner.
Yeah, from a relationship in that manner. Yeah. You know, and she said, obviously, you said it affect your self-esteem. You said depression, and people would tell you were a nice, attractive, and you are a nice, attractive woman. But you didn't believe any of that.
No, I didn't.
Was it because he put that in your head, or how did?
Because he called me everything in the book but the name on my birth certificate.
Wow.
So when you constantly hearing those names, oh, you ugly B, you ain't nothing but a W, do this, do that. So it's never nothing your name. So And it's like it was programmed in your head at the time. So not saying I believed it, but it was something that was repetition.
Gotcha. I also have a question. So, if you don't mind me asking, but about how long were you in that relationship?
I was in the relationship a total of 6 years, but the
6 years.
abuse didn't start until right after I had my daughter.
Gotcha. So the abuse in the relationship started like how long
2
after
years.
the abuse started? You were in it for two more
2
years.
years.
That's a long time.
So before it was good for the first 2 years,
It was peaches and cream in the beginning.
what do you think triggered that?
Yeah.
I'm not for sure what triggered it.
And when I say that, I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying
Right.
that you did
Right,
that.
right,
I'm just
right.
saying what happened? Like, let me ask you this. Were there any signs?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Were there any signs that this person was this type of man?
Or
No.
I also would say too, were there any tragedies? Did anything happen on his side, or lose a job, or was something like that, or any deaths in the family? Or I'd like to know that as well.
No, I did not see any warning signs at the beginning. He wasn't controlling. He wasn't jealous. So I wasn't seeing none of that in the beginning. Towards the end, after I had my daughter, he had 2 other kids that was always with us, and I treated them like my own. So I did not see any of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the switch went on. I don't know. I can't tell you.
Right. You know what? You say you didn't see any warning signs, but here's the thing I will bring up on this. Sometimes we're not used to what a warning sign looks like. You know what I mean? Right. And so you might not have seen a warning sign because it didn't look like a warning sign to you. You know what I mean? And so, because there are people, and I hate that you experienced that, but a lot of people also, maybe nothing did trigger it, because sometimes people are the way they are. They can just mask it for a very long time.
Yeah,
I do.
yeah,
Very
that's a good
well.
point.
Yeah.
And I
ahead.
would also say too, I grew up watching my mother. My mother was abused. My mother was married 3 times, and all of those relationships were some kind of abuse. The first 2 marriages were physical abuse. My father was very physically abusive to my mother. The last relationship was a lot of manipulation, and he cheated on her multiple times. One thing that I noticed in my mother, I can't speak for any other woman, but one thing I noticed in my mother was she dated based on her self-esteem level. That's how she dated. So she literally went from one abusive relationship to the next, and she dated based on her self-worth. She didn't feel like she was worth much. And I think the dangers in that was my brother and myself, we grew up in the midst of all of this. So as a child watching your mother be physically abused, and there's nothing that the woman did. There's nothing a woman does to deserve abuse. There is nothing that the woman does. I just want to say that. I think it is all on the abuser. And I think that hurt people.
Right.
And I think that, this guy, obviously, and I just want to apologize to you for him, not to condone anything that he did, but I want to apologize to you for him. You did not deserve anything, any of that. You did not deserve it. God did not create any woman to be abused in any relationship. That is not his purpose. And so for this guy, I think for this man, whatever issues he had going on with himself, it's sad that that's the way that he felt he needed to deal with his own personal issues.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with his own self-esteem, if you want to get real about it. And he just took what he thought was the weaker vessel, and took whatever emotions that he had and took it out on her. And that's what a lot of men do. They hide too. We have our own insecurities, and if we're mad and we're at the world, and we're with someone who is willing to put up with that. Now we need to have that kind of control in order to make ourselves, or to build our fake esteem up, and to make us appear to be strong, and when we're really just as weak. You know what I mean?
And another thing too is like Ty kind of said, and also you were kind of alluding to the fact that some men, if that's all they saw, then that's all they know.
Right.
Okay. Learn behavior. From maybe their parents,
or whatever, or guardian or whatever may have you. If that's all you've seen, and that's the only thing that you can only replicate what you've seen at that point. If you haven't been exposed to something different, so you think that's normal, at 9-10 years old, and that's what you see for 10 years of your life, and that's a problem. You know what I mean? And so that's just, it's sad, but it's truth. You know what I mean? And then you're getting into a relationship with somebody that you think and until you don't know that person anymore.
And Andrea, I want to ask you as well. In what ways has that relationship changed you moving forward, and do you have any apprehensions about future relationships, and do you still deal with some of those traumatic experiences? Do you have kind of flashbacks in friendships and relationships now, and how are you dealing with that if you do?
As far I do not go into relationships. I mean, at first it was hard for me to start another relationship because I was scared of what the person might do to me, might say to me. If you yell at me, if you raise your voice, then I'm a tremble like a little kid, If I leave, are you going to say, where you going? What time you going to come back? Or, if I say I'm going to go with my family, you're going to have a problem with that. So at first it was really hard for me to get in another relationship because of those issues that I have, my self-confidence, my fear. So all of those things was hard for me to deal with at first. And I started carrying them from relationship to relationship. So I had to stop trying to fulfill that void. And so once I just stopped, dating and just wait and let God send who He have for me, then I was able to heal. Even though He is the father of my child, we still do not speak. My daughter is 21 years old. So I had to write a letter. I had to forgive him. So because I can't have a verbal conversation with him, even when we in child support court, I cannot look at him and have a conversation with him. So I wrote a letter and I put it in my Bible and I just let it go. That's how I had to release it and release my forgiveness for him. And I was able to move on.
So now when a man compliments you or says that you're beautiful, how do you process that now?
I swing that hair to the left, to the
right. That's good to hear.
I tell you what, let's take a commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about how you regain, in more detail, how you regain your confidence, your self-esteem, and if it changed maybe the type of relationship that you are looking for now? What has changed, in that aspect, and how you're benefiting from this newfound swag, as you call it?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that when we come back from these commercial messages. See you back on the Next 15. Hey, this is Trey North with the Next 15 podcast show, and I want to invite you to listen to my special 3-part podcast series entitled Who Am I? Me and my special co-host Chris McAllister and Ty Hosey will be discussing topics on self-esteem, abusive relationships, men's mental health awareness, and much more. We'll be joined by special guest co-hosts who will share their transparency in regards to their own personal lives. If you or someone you know are battling self-esteem issues from past experiences and need a little help in your journey putting the pieces back together, or needing some encouraging words of wisdom to help put things back into perspective, then join us Friday live at 7 p.m. on Spreaker.com for this 3-part podcast series entitled Who Am I? To listen, go to www.Spreaker.com and search the Next 15 for live interactive chat, or www.next15podcast.com. Who Am I? A 3-part podcast series only on the Next 15 podcast show with Trey North. Follow us at Next 15 Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter platforms. I'll see you this Friday night live at 7 p.m. on the Next 15. You're listening to the Next 15 Podcast Show with Trey North on Spreaker.com. Welcome back to the Next 15 Podcast Show.
Hey, listen, wait a minute. I know we're back, but I have a question.
Okay.
That while we were listening to the commercial,
okay,
I do have a question that I do want to ask you, and I don't want this to be, hopefully this doesn't offend you by any way. But when you're in that type of relationship, usually there's, when you're talking physical abuse, was there any, and I'm just going to be frank about it, was there any sexual abuse in regards to just being in a relationship like that?
Actually, no. I didn't face any sexual abuse in that any relationship, but I had friends and close ones to me who had, sexual abuse done to them.
Okay.
The one that was closest to me that had it done, she ended up holding in a lot of anger.
Yeah.
She felt like it was her fault. At first she didn't like any boys at all, men at all.
Wow.
So she was turning to the same sex.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that's hard.
That's hard.
Yeah. That affects you on so many different levels.
Right.
I mean, I haven't experienced any of that personally either.
Yeah.
But when a person goes through that, I can only imagine how that will affect your self-esteem, and that can bring out a lot of things that a lot of things outside of your character that you wouldn't normally do. I mean, I've heard about other women or men have become promiscuous. You know what I mean? And they start, that's one way that they cope with sex. Even though they've been sexually abused, they're being promiscuous.
Yeah.
Let's see. Gail said, Gail says she immediately started praying, Andrea, you're courageous for sharing your story, and someone will be on their path. To healing. Amen. I appreciate that, Gail.
Thank you, Miss Gail.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons I bring that up, and what's so crazy is that she kind of began to allude to what I was gonna go to, is that it opens up the door to so many other things.
Right.
Like abuse starts, especially, I mean, and we're talking physical abuse at this point,
right.
but the physical abuse opens the door to so many
It
other
does.
pathways.
It does.
Because you said, like, for anybody to raise their voice at you, how you
Yes.
kind of cower down, you know what I mean, and back up. Like, it what it does is, again, it begins to put walls up that you don't even know that are walls.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if anybody happens to raise your voice, I have a beautiful young daughter that has dealt with something like this in our household. And I'm very candid to talk about it, where, you know, if anybody, again, raises their voice, it triggers her.
It does. It
It's
does.
a trigger.
Yeah.
And so I'm naturally loud, so I have to begin to, you know, I have to watch my tone, even in a joking manner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have to watch my tone when I'm speaking around her or to her. And again, I mean, if anybody's that has experienced that, it runs so much deeper than just the physical aspect. The physical aspect of it is just the door, really, of a you know, of a deep pathway that goes very, very, very deep.
Yeah, I think that's all the enemy needs.
Yes.
He just needs a crack to start chipping at you.
Right.
That's
Right.
what he's doing. I mean, even as when you're in something, in a relationship like that, I mean, not only do you have this physical being that is tearing you down, now you have a spiritual attack on you that is beginning to also tear you apart into pieces.
Right.
Yes.
And if it's unaddressed, then, you know, and you don't know how to cope with it, you'll do things like we said, outside of your character. And that's when, that's when we need God.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when we need God. I mean, and
Absolutely.
she said that, you know, that was Andrea. I remember you saying something about, God got you out of the situation, and so you were able to get up and get the confidence that you needed.
Right.
Let me ask, did you have any support?
I had support from, even though I wasn't able to talk to my family, no cell phone, no pager. Back then, those pagers, but those pages. So I couldn't have no form of no electronic device to communicate with them.
Okay.
So I had, even when my manager called, my mom was still my mom. She was still there regardless.
Yeah.
You know, and I love you, Mom, if you're listening. But so even though I was in a relationship for 6 years, and then you'd be like, well, you took the punches and abuses for 2 years. You know, what's wrong with you? You know, so it's a thing called love. You know, a lot of people say, well, that's not love if he gave you a black eye. That's not love when he hit you and say, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. You know, that's not love. But, you know, so I stayed in because I couldn't move my feet at the time. I wasn't ready. So you have to be able to build your strength up to say, okay, I'm done. I'm not coming back. Because if you say, okay, I'm done, you know, he hit you, I'm done, you're going to go back the next day.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to go repetition. But for me, I was done after he did what he did, you know.
Yeah.
You had mentioned also about the social abuse.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how, and we don't have to just talk about just your experience, but just in general, guys. Let's talk about the dangers of that, of social abuse, because she was like, she couldn't even talk to her family members or let's talk about the Ty. Are you still there with us?
I am here. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
You know, as a health education teacher, dealing with, you know, we deal with health in 4 dimensions now: mental, emotional, social, spiritual, and physical health. And I am always a little bit harder on my teenage girls, and I think all of them can attest to that. And the reason being is because the structure and the discipline is not always there. And so when I asked them, you know, what do you look for in a relationship? They always say looks. He got to be fine. He got to be fine.
Yeah.
And that's always the first thing. And it's always getting them to see certain things. Socially,
Mm.
social health is I have a group of friends.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes along and they pick at my friends one by one. Why you hanging around her? Why you hanging around her? Oh, you got a guy friend? Why is he your friend? He just
Mm.
want one thing from you.
Uh,
And then they are steadily picking apart your friends, and they are trying to isolate you. It's kind of like a snake that constricts
mm.
slowly. He constricts himself around you little by little. And these guys in these situations, they are master constrictors. That's what they are. Little by little, they begin to pick at areas. And I
Mhm.
think that socially is one of those areas, because in
Mhm.
order for me to get to the other avenues, I've got to first isolate you socially.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to
Mm-hmm.
if your mama is all up in our business, I've got to try to find a way to get your mama out
Mm-hmm.
of our business.
That's right.
If you got a best friend, I've got to try to find a way to kind of turn you against her. And so
Mm.
these are master constrictors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I agree.
Wow.
Dude, that was deep. And
Yeah.
and I agree with a lot of that, because a lot of individuals, and again, I can just speak on the male aspect, that most men, we're more, how can I, when males are like that, we dissect all the entire situation, your friend base, even when we're not, being abusive. Like when I was dating my wife, I was very cognizant of who her friends were and what their traits were. And like, hey, you going out with Tiffany tonight? Oh, I know what's going on tonight. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And then, like you said, he says like it's a master constrictor. Once he knows who's who and what is what, he
Yeah.
then knows how to then break you away from that
Right.
individual.
Right.
Because guess
Yep.
what? You're gonna bring your problems to him about
Right.
that person anyway.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
So, oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes men, we can be such manipulators,
Yeah.
master manipulators.
Absolutely.
Yes, y'all
Yeah.
can.
Hey, I want to open up the phone lines if anybody wants to share anything or offer encouragement or whatever. 512-827-9164. That number is 512-827-9164 if you want to comment on this deep topic tonight.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage for someone to tell that type of testimony. You know what I
is.
mean?
Yeah.
I think, man, the Rod says, yeah, the talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, and I'm not here to just bash all men, but I do think sometimes we can just be, again, so manipulative.
Right.
Especially once we're predators. Once we find out your weakness, and Todd gave a great analogy of that. If I
Okay,
could,
but go ahead.
wait,
I'm
no,
sorry.
you go ahead.
But let me add something to that. But what you have to realize too, not only men are the abusers.
Yes.
Women abuse men too,
Yeah.
Yes.
or the same sex as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Let me touch on that a little bit too, if I can.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And just to kind of swing to another point that I always teach my 13, 14-year-old eighth graders at a young age is you first must date yourself. You must
Right.
date yourself first.
Mhm.
And I always tell my girls, don't you ever, ever, like Chris Tucker, don't you ever get into a relationship and you have not written down your standards. Because if you don't write down your standards, somebody's going to write them down for you, and you're not going to like them.
Real talk.
Yeah.
So you
Yep.
need to write down your standards, and then you need to have enough common sense to realize when your standards are too high. Because some of them will say, well, he got to be rich. Okay, but if he got to be rich, then you need to be rich, because you can't expect more from him than you're willing to give. If you want your man to be educated, you make sure that you're working on some education as well,
Right.
because you do want a man who can add to your success, but you need to make sure that your success is not on the floor. You need to pick your success up off the floor and then you can challenge him and you can set these high standards. I always say to my girls all the time, if he got to have on certain shoes, what about your shoes? They busted. So then we got to understand. I try to get them to understand, date yourself, know what you like. And when somebody comes along and they're not talking to you the way you wrote down on that piece of paper, then that should tell you that this is not the right person for you. And so I think a lot of that, if you love your friends and your friends are a huge part of your life, don't you let nobody socially isolate you from your friends. And so, and that's where a lot of it goes as well. It is dating ourselves and writing down those standards and
Uh-huh.
applying those standards in every relationship.
Right.
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 I agree.
And,
I
and,
agree.
and you're absolutely right about that, man. I told my daughters the same thing. At the end of the day, if you don't write down, and they're so crazy, like exactly the same words, if you don't write down your standards, if you don't have any standards, some of these young ladies and men don't even have standards. Like the only standards, if, like you say, if the guy's cute or is the girl fine, and then at that point, now you're dating some crazy guy.
Or money. Does he have
Yep.
money?
Or the car.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hold on, guys. We got a caller that's calling in. Welcome to the Next 15 podcast. This is Trey. Who am I speaking with and where are you calling from?
This is Sheree, and I'm calling from Dallas.
Hey, Sheree. How are you
Sheree.
Hey,
doing?
Sheree.
I'm great.
What is your comment or question that you might have for us tonight?
No, I don't have a question. I do have a comment. And so, not that I've been ever physically abused, but I was a victim, and I call myself a victim of domestic violence because my dad used to hit my mom, and I never saw it because actually I have nothing but great thoughts about my daddy. I was a daddy's girl, and my mom never spoke ill about my daddy. She always spoke about how he took care of his family, how he loved his kids, and how he loved her. So so long story short, he used to beat her, and then finally she got tired. She was going to leave, and it was a situation where, well, if I can't have you, no one can. So he shot her.
Mm.
It was an
Man.
attempted murder suicide. So he shot her in the head, in the temple, and then he shot himself and killed himself. Well, thankfully my mama lived. Nothing's wrong with her. So
Oh.
I say
That's
I'm a
God.
victim of domestic violence because I had to be raised in a single parent home,
Yeah.
and I didn't have that father figure in my life. But growing up, I kind of figured out some things. And one of the things I found is that why some people stay in these situations is like, as you guys touched on, like self-esteem issues. And I just look at my mom and how she operates. And it's more like self-esteem issues, how you see yourself, embarrassment. You
Right.
don't want to hear someone say, I told you so. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try to love them enough so
Right.
they can see that that I love them, that it will stop,
Right.
but
Mm.
it doesn't. So, growing up, I didn't have a father figure. So, Cliff Huxtable was how I wanted my
A
family
lot of
to
people.
be.
Right. A lot of
No,
people.
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was. And it was. And when I was looking for a husband, I mean, ironically, on that list were the qualities that my mom said my dad was: a provider, someone who loved his
Right.
family and his kids. And because of her situation, I always vowed, say, you know what, I cannot accept that because my mom instilled those things, in me. And so thankfully,
Uh-huh.
me and my husband been married for 16 years, and I just think he's the best thing since Cane's and Chick-fil-A. You know, I do. I just love him to death, and I think
Yeah.
that situation, I hate it happened, but it helped me not to experience what my mom went through. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just never know because I'll just say me and my sister grew up in the same household, but we got two different stories from the same lesson. If that
Mm.
makes sense, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
I
does.
follow.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I have daughters, twins, as a matter of fact, and they grew up in the house. And I will say my twins aren't my husband's, but he's raised them since they were 3.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Those girls are learning two different lessons
Mm-hmm.
from the same story. And it's like, how can you prevent it? And sometimes it's like, well, we've done everything that we could. My mama raised us the best, but again, like you guys said, you have to love yourself first, and you have to know your worth. And sometimes that's hard. It's hard to, I can tell my baby, I love you and you're beautiful, but until they believe it, they'll put up with stuff that, you're like, why would you put up with? Some people don't understand it, but until you've been in that situation, I guess if everything I'm saying makes sense.
Right.
It does.
Yes. Okay. But that's my little bit for tonight.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Good information.
Oh, yeah. And Ty, yes, payday is today. Thank you.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, no, thank y'all. And again, I enjoyed listening. And y'all need to thank Ty, because I'm the reason why. He's the reason why I'm listening.
Well, we do. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
You too.
All right. We got another phone call. Hold on, my guys. Welcome to the Next 15 podcast show. This is Trey. Who am I speaking with? Where you calling from?
Yes, sir. This is Rod Garrett calling from Houston, Texas. How y'all doing?
Hey, doing good, Rod.
What's going on, Rod?
What you got?
Hey, doing great. Hey, man. First of all, I want to say to you, Andrea, that it takes an incredible amount of strength and courage, not only to have gone through what you've gone through, but also to muster up enough courage to be transparent and share your story with the listening audience. So for that, I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
For what you did for this session. Just want to share just real quick that I grew up in a home where my dad was very abusive toward my mom. Excuse me. As a child witnessing that abuse, oftentimes I wondered, like, number one, like how, my mom was able to endure it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not only try to endure it, but try to do like the normal things, go to work, take care of us, and, still be, sociable with friends. And they had a lot of what they would call like house parties and getting together and all stuff. So it was incredible to watch it from from a very traumatic perspective, but also it was like, what type of strength did my mom or women, you, Andrea, have to muster up in order to not only to endure it, but to survive it and all the ripple effects that come along with it, and trying to raise your children to keep them safe in a safe space, but also to not lose your dignity and not be shamed.
Yeah.
And not to be feel like that why me, to the degree where you would give up. And so I say that from the perspective of someone looking through the lens as a 5, 6, 7-year-old. So I will say this, is that any woman who has endured that, or any person that's listening, Andrea, this is so heavy, but it's healing at the same time.
Yes.
And so I definitely want to, and as I close my remark, I would just want to say that what you endured, and it not only, I believe, because I am, I'm 47, and it still touches me in a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
What I will say is, not only did you do it for yourself, but it was such a major source of strength for your daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
Or for anybody else that you were socially isolated from, who were not intimately witnessing, but they saw they maybe saw some of the signs and effects that you had endured. So my hat again is off to you, because I think about my mom as you share your story. And so I want to thank you. I thank you again, and also I want to thank you guys for this segment, because it's like I said, it's both heavy and healing at the same time. I appreciate y'all.
Man, thank you, man. Thank you so much for your encouraging words and your enlightenment too, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Appreciate you. All right.
actually, Rod is going to be on here next Friday.
Yeah.
We got Andrea from a woman's perspective, but Rod is going to be on here next Friday talking about men's mental wellness,
right?
Mental health and wellness, things that we go through that we don't talk about. So, yeah, man, we definitely appreciate you calling in, and we look forward to hearing you on next week.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rod.
Absolutely. All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, have a good night. Yeah.
And see, and what's so crazy is that, you know, when you start talking about abuse, especially between, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, what we don't really consider a lot of the times is that child that happens to be watching in the background or hearing,
how it affects
and, and how it affects them. You know, he said, like Rod said, you know, he's a 47-year-old grown man,
and he's still getting choked
and
up.
It's still, you know what I mean?
Still,
and you know, and even with forgiving, because Andrew, you said something earlier about how you forgave him.
I did. I had to for myself.
Yeah. But even in the forgiveness, you know, sometimes forgiveness don't take away the pain.
Right.
All right.
You know what I mean?
I forgive you, but I won't forget.
I won't forget. Right.
Yes.
You know, and so you know, time kind of heals all wounds.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It does.
And so after you forgive, it might, you know, you might have forgave him 15 years ago, but every once in a while it still creep up in your mind, and it'll make you mad. You'll be like, that dirty joker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with that, sometimes I want to say this is that at the end of the day, you're going to have to look at, you know, as you forgive, some of us won't forget, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to let time do what it does best.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because just like Sheree said, when she called, I used to ask myself, why me? You know, why do I? You know, my sisters wasn't going through it. My mom went through it, but I was like, but why me?
Right.
And it's like, so it had you questioning. I was like, did I do something wrong? Did I wash the dishes wrong? Did I put them up wrong?
Right.
Because he just, anything, you know, it was always him calling me out of my name. So it's like I never did. So I always thought that I did something wrong.
Right.
But what I found out was abusers tend to blame you for anything and make you believe that the situation happened different than it actually happened.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that it's also important. It's good that so many people get to hear your story. God's word says all things work together for the good of those who love him.
Absolutely.
And I believe that even though it was not God's purpose to have you, or it was not God who intentionally wanted you to go through that, I do believe it is God who can give you something out of that. And now each one teach one.
Right.
And so I believe that you're going through a time in your life where now you can reach out to other young ladies because the work is not done.
Right.
So many times we go through a tragic event and then we think it's over when we get out. And it's not. I think there's so many other women going through the same situation, and God forbid if there's any going through it on here listening right now, they need to hear this story. So I think that your story speaks to so many people, and it should give you strength and encouragement just to be able to get it out and knowing that somebody's going to be blessed to hear your story.
Yeah.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, let's take our final commercial break and we'll come back and we'll talk about getting out of situations and things of that nature, and how the word of God can get you out.
Yes, sir.
Let's do that when we come back with the next 15. Life Changers Church presents a 30-minute biblical study that will propel you through the rest of your week. We call it Wednesday Night Wisdom. and it's right here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. live here at LCC Austin on Facebook and on YouTube live at Life Changers Austin beginning September the 30th. It's Wednesday Night Wisdom right here from Life Changers Church, where we're changing lives, starting with ourselves.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Next 15 podcast show. Tonight's topic is in peace, not in pieces. And we just heard from some of our listeners, Sheree and Rod, and of course from our guest co-host Andrea Clark, in regards to her personal testimony with her issues with going through abuse and physical abuse, mental and verbal. And now I want to kind of shed some light on this thing and how we can get ourselves out of this situation and the importance of how to do that. You want to go ahead with that, Pastor Chris?
Yeah. So in regards to really begin to look at when you're in situations like this, the Bible is very, very simple. The Bible says that he has given you all things to be able to get yourself out of situations like this. And so sometimes we're looking for God to do miracles when a change of habit will change what needs to be changed. And so what I mean by that is that, we look to everybody else. Right. And we look to get help from people who don't understand what you're going through. And that's why, the enemy will make you feel like you're on an island. We call it the island of Patmos by yourself. Right. And that's what the enemy, he's great at doing, is making you feel secluded. That that's what he wants you to do. But at the end of the day, God knows that if he can get you to understand that, like Ty said earlier, that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called to his purpose. Right. See, you have to understand that there's a purpose in your life. While you're going through what you're going through, there's still purpose. Yeah. And if you can begin to really understand that, it doesn't matter what nobody says about you. It doesn't matter what they call. You know that you have a purpose.
I'm not your opinion.
Yeah, I'm not your opinion. Yeah. I'm God's purpose. Yeah. And so the minute that you begin to understand it, I believe that's the door that you have to turn to begin to walk out of these situations. But here's the thing. You won't know that if you don't turn to the word of God and you don't seek his face. Yeah. Especially again, we seek people's opinion and we seek people to pull us out of these situations. Right. But people really can't help you. It's great to have a support system. Right. Absolutely, you're going to need it. Right. But if that support system doesn't have anything to give to you to help pull you out, if they can't cast that line or that rope out to help pull you out, you know what I mean? Then you're still stuck where you are.
That reminds me. My mom always told me that if you can tolerate a situation, you can't change it. But the moment it becomes intolerable is when you can change that thing. Right. One interesting thing that you said to me, or that you said to all of us that are listening, was that the guy had a gun on you and a bullet in the chamber, and he spent it twice.
Russian roulette.
And it still didn't work.
It didn't work.
So that God already had you right then and there.
Purpose.
A double dose of grace.
Yep, a double dose of grace. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
so I want to speak on this too. As far as getting out, I need, hear me, my brother, hear me, my sister, whoever is listening. I need you to understand this. Change starts within. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you take that finger and the finger that is pointing at the other person, right, and point it at yourself, because that's where change starts. Don't look for other people to change for you, because guess what? They may not be as far along in the race as you are.
Right.
Okay?
That's right.
At some point, God is going to bring you along and start to change your mind about things and transform you. The Bible says that you would be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yeah. And so in your mind, when you are tired, when you are fed up, when you are angry, now change comes. Change starts within. And I beseech you, women, I beseech you, brothers, because brothers need to understand this too, that if you are tired, listen, that person could be asleep. You don't need your clothes. Get up and run out in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You better do like Angela Bassett did on What's Love Got to Do with It. She
Yeah.
got her babies up out of that bed, and they got on that bus. Okay,
That's right.
And listen, if they go to work, you be right behind them, 10 minutes behind. You get your stuff and you get out of there, because guess what? We are fighting for our lives.
Yeah,
right.
And
That's
we all
right.
have a moral compass.
Right.
That person knows, these abusers, they know that what they are doing is wrong.
Yeah.
But like I said, they are not as far along in the race as you are. Some people, it takes jail. It takes prison.
Right.
That's what it takes. For some people, it takes being knocked down to the point to where, okay, I don't have a choice but to change. And for some, it takes death.
Right.
So with that being said, we are fighting for our lives. 3 words. Change starts. Change from within. From within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
That's so good,
Yes.
Ty. That's good.
Andrew, you got anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
So, what I want to tell everybody, I know during this pandemic, we haven't been able to see anybody, but you can call and just check on somebody.
Yeah.
Whoever you haven't heard from,
That's good.
just check on, because you never know what somebody is going through, because they're not going to tell you. Make sure the person has a exit plan if they is in a situation. Make sure you build a support system, and stop blaming yourself. And make sure your mental and your health is your priority.
Yeah.
That's good.
And realize that you can't fix the abuser.
Right.
And then you just have to establish your boundaries with the abuser.
Yeah.
You just have to realize you can't. It's time for you to walk away.
That's good.
That's good.
That's good.
That's
That's
really
real good. Man, this has been good.
Yeah.
This has been very eye-opening, and I hope everyone that is listening tonight has received something from this.
Yeah.
And if you are going through something like this, please seek strength, seek help, seek God.
Yeah.
And like Ty said, get out of there.
Get out of there.
Yeah, you have to love yourself. You know, it's self-esteem. It's an esteem of yourself, and no matter what others have said about you, you are not their opinion.
Right.
Yeah. You got anything, Pastor Chris, before we leave?
Yeah, man. The only thing and the last thing I would say, man, is it's very simple. Is that God says, "I'll never leave you, nor would I ever forsake you."
Yeah.
So everything that you're going through, understand that God is with you.
Yeah.
You know, it might not feel good right now,
Right.
but there is a point to what you're going through.
Right.
Again, all things work together, even the bad things.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank y'all for listening tonight. I know this was a different episode. It was real tough to hear all those things. But very kind of bring about a self-awareness. But I thank everybody that's out there listening. You can follow us at the next15podcast.com, where you can find this episode and past episodes right there from your browser. You can also get with us on Spreaker.com and join in on the show, on the interactive show. We'd love to have you. We do this every Friday night at 7 p.m. We also go live for a pre-show on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube at 6:30 for a pre-show. So you can head over there. And also on the weekends, you never know what we're going to pop up and do a video with Ty and Chris and whoever we choose. I mean, we might have somebody on there. We never know. But we thank you so much for listening. I want to give a shout out to my mom, Stella B. North. I just want to tell you I love you. I talked to you earlier today, but I didn't tell you I love you. I think I told her I love her. I don't know if I did it. I don't know. And my sister Jessica, I love you too. I'll call you back. I didn't answer her phone call. She's probably mad at me. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all who participated tonight, Rod and Sheree. Thank you so much. Shamika, Gail, Erica, Jacqueline, everybody. I hope we didn't miss anybody that was in the chat. Juan, thank you, Juan. Juan Alaman. Before I go, I have to plug him. He's my buddy. Has a great show, the 80s Hour with Juan Alaman, and also the Wrestling Way Back podcast. I like saying it, Way Back podcast. He's also on the Spreaker family. The 80s Hour is on Wednesday nights. I believe it's 9 Pacific. And I think Wrestling Way Back podcast is 7. I know it's 7 Central because that's when I'm awake. Great episode. He did also an episode on Sean Connery and Alex Trebek. You know, Alex Trebek just passed, but Sean Connery. And then he did, and I know you're going to want to go back and listen to this, Chris, The Undertaker last night. Yeah, man. So great podcast from Juan. Thank you, Juan, for listening. Shout out. Hey, Adrian, we want to give you a shout out too. Thank you for listening tonight. Guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for the Next 15 podcast. This is Trey North, Chris McAllister, Ty Hosey, and Andrea Clark. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your testimony.
Thank you for having me and allowing me.
All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on the Next 15.